Acolytes. I'm actually quite surprised that I got this in as a recommendation from my acolytes. It's just surprising, positively surprising, because at the end of the day, I know one or two things about swords. No, not on a master level. It was more of a when I was a young lich, a mere 10,000 years old. I actually just dug in a bit how those fuckers are made. Maybe even fought with one, trained with one, but it was more of a, well, let's just say, I prefer the practical things about it, not the entire thing. And this video is about if a katana can defeat a sword breaker. And I will say in the short run, as it's in my opinion, yes, because a katana is flexible. A sword breaker is dependent on the fact that a sword isn't. So there's that. Yeah, the flexibility of a katana isn't always a good thing, but in this case, definitively. So, and by the way, I don't mean that swords aren't not at all flexible. To a certain degree, yes, but katanas are extremely flexible. Just with my understanding.
I think we're going to bend blades today. I think we will bend them. And how it works is usually, especially spring steel, bending a spring steel blade and then bending it back can kind of not be the best for it.
Yes.
When it comes to something like a katana, let's say, for example, I reckon we'd be able to bend a katana and we could probably bend it back.
We need to try that.
That's why I brought it up. Luckily, we have lots of katanas that are traditionally made. And guess what we can do with them? We can break them. So why don't we get to the break?
But they're all so expensive, Tyrant. I know the one you're thinking of. It's a $2,000 sword.
It's a piece of trash.
Let's just like do a basic kind of trap.
Nani? It was at this moment that he knew.
Hey. By the way, I'm a fan of Shed since years. But for F's sake.
Sword breakers, as we've recently discovered in a recent video, they are everything that they were hyped up to be, and maybe even more. But there's one thing, Tyrant. There's one thing that we haven't tested that we need to find out. We have to find out, because it's called a sword breaker.
So can I break a sword?
I mean, why would they call it a sword breaker?
Well, there's a caveat to this.
If it can't break a sword.
I missed the caveat over here. Just explaining that, first off, like, historical swords were not as insane in terms of quality as modern swords. That doesn't mean you didn't have good quality ones. It's just swords these days are min-maxed to be amazing.
And the spring tempers that, modern manufacturing can put on even cheaper end swords are near flawless in terms of their execution. Like, they heat it up to the perfect right temperature, cool it down with machine precision and mechanical reproduction and processes.
Right amount of carbon atoms, like, it's a whole thing, right? It's a science. And then you have like the geometry of a blade. There's science in that.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of science that goes into swords, especially modern day swords, to be like perfect. So I would summarize my...
Yeah, that's a mistake that a lot of people do. They assume that in the Middle Ages, the people had the exact same technology that we got to these days. That's just not the case. We can definitively do way better thing than people in the Middle Ages. This was just a gigantic difference. We know things they didn't at that point. So there's that.
My thoughts on it is, as a base level parrying dagger, I think it's perfectly fine. It does have the ability to also trap a blade if you're lucky enough.
Wait, check out a video. Like, the design of a sword breaker is actually genius. Where see these little prongs here? These dig into, they like scratch into the steel and they clamp on like pincers, and the more pressure you try and pull it with, the more it clamps in and traps the blade. Check out our video where we discover and test it, and this is brilliant.
Yeah. Now, getting the blade out isn't it?
And by the way, it's not only that you can break swords with it, but you can also potentially disarm your opponent with it. It's a bit harder, but it's possible. So, this thing is pretty effective. Nobody will carry it because stabbing someone is, well, basically better. But a sword breaker, yes, a very useful tool.
Impossible, but in the midst of combat, especially if you only have one blade and that blade has been parried, that millisecond that I have to like kind of get it out, he's already got me. So just at that base level, I dig it.
Oh, hell yeah. Now, in terms, going back to the name, why would they call it Swordbreaker if it can't break swords? Well, it could be that you might be thinking of the wrong type of break. For instance, in combat, there is an idea of breaking through an opponent's guard. Okay? And a Swordbreaker enables you to do that really well.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, fair
Also,
enough.
I think, like, for example, I think we're going to bend blades today. I think we will bend them. And how it works is usually, especially spring steel, bending a spring steel blade and then bending it back can kind of not be the best for it.
Yes.
When it comes to something like a katana, let's say, for example, I reckon we'd be able to bend a katana and we could probably bend it back.
We need to try that.
That's why I brought it up.
So here's the thing, right? We are going to test in this video if a Swordbreaker is capable of breaking an actual blade. We have some sacrificial blades that we can put to the test to see if it's possible. I reckon bending is a possibility.
I think bending's possible.
Breaking, like when people hear break, they usually think snap.
Yeah.
But if you have a sword that is bent to the point where you can't use it, it is broken. It is a broken sword. Would you
Yeah.
give that charity?
Yeah, I would.
I think so.
The only caveat that I have to, another one.
Remember, the liasman understanding of something is different than from a master or of his craft. Words doesn't always mean the normal meaning of them. Sometimes they need a lot of context. And breaking is in this case is, as he explained, more of a disarm. If you just reduce the offensive and defensive capabilities of your opponent, you're already broken. Simple as that. Just like, I think I'm gonna Expedition 33, Clara Obscura. They also have a break mechanic, and the enemies don't snap in half. They are stunned. So there you got it.
One that I have to bring up is we're not going to be testing a rapier. We only have one functional rapier, and if we bend or break that, that means we no longer have a rapier.
Yes.
Fair
That's
enough.
the one that I think would have the most.
Because it's thin
It's
and
very
usually more
thin.
flexible and less torque. But if we can break blades that are thicker than a rapier,
Then we can.
then it'll be able to do it to a rapier.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
katana one is interesting.
it is. Luckily, we have lots of katanas that are traditionally made, and guess what we can do with them? We can break them. So why don't we get to the breaking?
But they're all so expensive, Tyrant. I know the one you're thinking of. It's a $2,000 sword.
It's a piece of trash. It is, man. That sword sucks. Sorry. For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about this blue custom Shadiversity katana with, I think it's pretty sure it has, no, it's
layered. It's made out of different grades of steel. It's
Yeah.
$2,000.
It's terrible.
We hate it.
It's terrible.
But it's also fine. We're doing it for you guys.
$2,000 katana versus a sword breaker. There you
Yeah.
go.
That's
Thumbnail.
the video title. We should.
By the way, Shed always. The only thing I don't like about Shed is that he always cries about his wee-wees and that everything is getting more expensive, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, you just have to deal with it. And if you want to continue your content the way you want, you have to evolve. Simple as that. It's of course a bit shitty of me to say that because I wrenching in, but Acolytes, you need to understand that I am not always, even if I like a creator, it doesn't mean that I always agree with them. As you should do with me. What I am and I am very happy that my acolytes disagree with me on a regular basis. With logic, most of you. There are some fuckers that come in and are just cry around. I had one that actually got, I think, like 7 comments deleted by YouTube automatically. One I deleted because it was so toxic, and then he cried around about freedom of speech in America and stuff like that. I just banned him because fuck him.
Like, we were thinking of Swordbreaker break things. Like, grab the katana. We'll make a new thumbnail. Like, $2,000 katana versus Swordbreaker. Holy crap. But before we continue, let me tell you about this week's exclusive Shadowversity episode, where we have an in-depth discussion on whether a blunt blade is actually more dangerous than a sharp one. Is that even true? To get access to this episode, as well as all the exclusive content that we are making weekly for our supporters, all you have to do is contribute as little as $1 a month through Subscribestar, Patreon, or channel memberships, and you get it all. And it is only thanks to our supporters that we're able to continue making this content, so thank you very much, and do sign up to get the answer to this very interesting question. So, first off, I just need to test something, and you mentioned it, right? Is that the Katana has a thinner bevel, okay, but also the blade is hardened to a higher level. And I have a suspicion about something that I want to find out.
Right. Well, the reason why the bevel thing matters is because this is such a large blade compared to this that the bevel is still out of the blade. With a European medieval type of blade, the bevel isn't usually as long or as aggressive.
Let's just like do a basic kind of trap. It's this is interesting. This is very interesting because you know what it's doing? It's doing the thing that we thought a sword breaker would do normally.
Yeah. Steel is slippery.
No. Like steel can bite in if it's scratching. I think the katana blade edge is harder than the prongs on the sword breaker. And because the prongs are not harder than that steel, it's not biting in. And because it's not biting in, it's not clamping down.
That's a fantastic observation, actually. You get one on the board every now and then.
Because you can find this out when you test blade hardness, and we have a blade hardness kit where we have little files, and the files you test the blade hardness by if they can scratch the blade.
If they bite in.
If it can bite in. And
you start at the top, so it slides, and then you get to a certain point where it will bite in, and that's where you know it's around that hardness.
We need to get a softer katana to see if it's the bevel or the steel that's doing it. All right, we have two different katana blades here made of different grades of steel.
This one here is just mild steel.
Mild steel, as basic as you can get. So, interesting. Ah, okay, so
That's one.
that's one. So I thought it was gripping a little more, but not huge amounts. I think it's the katana geometry that's doing more of the heavy lifting now. This is a much thinner blade profile. You could almost call it katana-like with the edges here. So
I got nothing.
nothing.
Oh, then maybe that one. Up near the tip.
Try and get it.
If I'm at the tip where it can
Okay,
fit
now
in the blade.
now I know what's going on. All right. If the prong can reach over a ridge, the central bevel, or the edge of the fuller of a sword, it'll clamp in and it'll lock it.
Yeah.
Because that's what's happening. That's what happened with, I reckon,
Interesting.
Timu's sword that we tested with. Yeah, look, you're over the ridge, and that, the more I pull, the more that clamps in. And so the prongs of the sword breaker are reaching over this first ridge here of the fuller. And then that clamps it in. Wow.
All right. So the interesting takeaway from this is not that katanas are immune to sword breakers. They are.
They kind of are.
They kind of are. But there are
other
also
swords would be.
There's also European swords. Because we do that, and then people
Everyone-
take the running
I
assumption
know.
katanas just beat sword breakers. Like, no.
Well, they do technically. We've got to give them the credit. Like, by virtue of their design, a katana can't get trapped by a sword breaker.
Yeah, all right, weeb. Settle down, Chad.
Hey, you're the one who you're more of a weeb than me, Tyrant. I'm being honest here. I'm giving it the credit.
Let's see if we can break some stuff now. Let's try and break some
I'm just fascinated by this more. But so yeah, again, this sword, because it has a wider blade and the bevel is, further in than the prongs of the breaker.
Fair enough.
It can't grip.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna be honest, nobody will actually use a sword breaker, but it's interesting.
So that's the main thing that does it. Steel, pull.
I don't want it because I don't have a glove on.
Steel is slippery. So some of our first observations or assumptions
Yeah.
are actually correct.
Well, the rapier, like we said, it fits the whole way in. So the rapier is like
Especially
trapped.
because the rapier is thin and then the bevel,
But
the
whole,
central ridge.
The whole blade fits in there.
Exactly. And because of that, the ridge is definitely beyond one of the prongs.
Yeah.
The prongs then lock it in.
And then the next one we tested was the Timu one, which just happened to be the one we grabbed.
Yes.
And there were certain reasons why it
Yes.
seems to have
The
worked.
bevel is just short enough to reach over the prongs. So we're looking at the bevel, and because it's got a fuller. If this didn't have a fuller and just had a central ridge,
Yeah.
wait! There is a way. There is a way where this breaker will beat the katana, I think. But we've got to find out. That's why we have to test it.
Can you guess what it is? Anybody?
Anybody? Do you know? Can you guess what might be the Achilles heel of the katana?
If I show you the geometry of the spine of a katana, and then I show you the geometry of this, they seem to fit together like literally lock and key.
Yeah, that's like kind of like they were made for each other,
Yeah,
right? It'll be harder to pull off, but if you twist it right, so say I'm coming in for an attack, you block it on the cross guard,
On the cross
and then twist it down, and then do it full.
You're not getting out of it.
Damn! Damn, okay. Freak, this is fascinating. Acolytes, this is freaking fascinating. I mean, the guard is big enough, you could pull it off, and it's, by the way more dangerous, but damn, it's a possibility, at least. I love this.
Got it, you got it. Wow. So
So do it again.
going in.
It's more fiddly and stuff. It's not as like
It's
crazy
hard because
as the other.
if I'm going through it, it's going to be very hard to lock in. Because if I'm going down,
because if I
a full,
first off, I'd have to catch it on.
you'd have to catch it. Like I'd go here, and then
I got nothing.
yeah.
Like that
but
is.
if you can somehow get it on the spine, because that gets over the ridge
You're not
to where the
gonna-
bevel is, that's locked. That is locked.
Yeah.
Harder to pull off though.
It's much harder to pull off, much more unlikely. But
Yeah.
with the double-edged blade, like the 18C, you don't have that. So technically, 18Cs are actually
18
immune.
This one here, you like go for.
I know this isn't a good representation.
We have a review where we destroyed this, and this sword is actually brilliant. But because both bevels are really long and it can't reach over the ridge, this sword is basically immune to a sword breaker.
Yeah. I reckon we're going to break our breaker as well.
Yeah, that like because this isn't our strongest.
It's really not. Like
We've already bent it.
Like it's admirable for what it is, 100%, but I reckon we're also going to break it. All right, so let's try and grab on anywhere onto this katana and see if we can get this sword breaker to do anything.
You can have more torque the higher up you go.
Yeah.
To get a slip out.
Up near the top, I was grabbing. You can grab up near the top.
Oh, can you? Okay.
But we're bending the sword breaker.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Damn.
Yeah, we're bending the sword breaker a lot.
Oh dear. The katana wins. The katana defeated the sword breaker.
Elevate. Step on something. Do it in the way you would standing still. Elevate yourself. Just effing elevate.
This katana bent on wood. Look down it. It has a warp. That's
It does.
from wood. So like, I know that it's a bad katana.
It's its redemption arc. It's coming back.
No.
Maybe we judged you too
No, we
harshly.
did not. So let's try it again with one of the,
No, it's not going to do it.
with those ones, they're more floppy.
Yes, you have a point. I mean, katanas are stiff blades.
Yeah. And if you want me to go full send, we can break this.
I don't want to break it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not heat treated, so it's not like we can
Yeah,
do
so
much with it.
the caveat to this is that It's defeating this Swordbreaker. This one seems to be made out of a softer steel.
I think it's stainless.
It's just stainless, okay. So, yeah, like a Swordbreaker that was made out of hardened steel could be performing much better. So this isn't a blanket statement that, all katanas will defeat all Swordbreakers, okay? But it is defeating our one, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think it maybe might have put a little tiny bend in it. That's impressive.
I know, for like, this is an $80 sword, but its temper on it is, like I said in the review, it's really good.
Yeah, like it gets to a point where it's like,
It ain't moving.
something's gonna happen here. It's interesting because obviously this wood moves as well, so
Yeah.
I'm moving the wood as well, but yeah, like I'm just gonna break this.
Yeah. Look, our poor Swordbreaker.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Shad?
We can't draw definitive conclusions because a stronger Swordbreaker would perform better.
Maybe if there's one available out there from some vendor, send us a
know.
link.
Yeah.
One that's actually properly heat treated, and we'll give that one a go, because this one here is more of a, there's functionality in it, but it's more wall hanger-ish.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, it functions perfectly well for its intended use, which
And
is to trap swords in
To
combat.
be fair, I reckon with a rapier, it would probably have a lot easier of a time.
This is true as
We
well.
are talking about some thick swords.
These are thick ones. You're correct. You're correct.
that.
But I think for intended use, it's perfectly adequate. Because guess what? A lot of medieval swords probably have heat treatment similar to that.
Yeah. This also brings up the point that I do think with the katana up near the tip, you can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can bite in a bit. Obviously on the spine of the blade, you can also definitely bite in. But on the edge, that's a little bit more of a complicated
Yeah.
thing.
So I'm glad we made this follow-up video because there's more complexity to the performance of Swordbreakers than we were initially seeing in our first tests.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, it doesn't look like this would be particularly complicated, to be quite honest. I mean, okay, you have a Swordbreaker, you chip in the sword and then do what you do. No, this is... Damn! This is just... For F's sake! I love it! I'm gonna be honest, I love it. I learned something new. Damn!
Steel is slippery.
And if you want to look, it performed really good in the first test. I think a lot of people have already seen that video actually.
Yeah.
But oh, dude, look at the warp on this. This is so. Oh wow! Again, straight here, looking at the camera, and then whoop. Oh yeah. So there's more to find out about Swordbreakers. We'd like to do it. We'll see if we can get a stronger one in.
If
But
this episode does well, then we'll do a couple more. Yeah.
hell yeah. In the meantime, check out the review of this $80 Temu sword. This thing is solid, dude. Look
This
at
is
this.
$80. Look at the flex on this.
The spring temper is just friggin' legit.
And we haven't shown it on camera because it was an exclusive, but just very quickly, look at that tang.
This is a beastie
Show
tang.
them the tang, Shad.
This tang
Look at that tang.
is gorgeous. Look at how thick that tang is, buddy.
On an $80 sword.
$80. What the hell, you know?
Surprising.
Check
yes.
out the review of this sword. It performs so much better than you would think. Right there. Thank you guys for watching. And until that time,
Damn! Shadow Versity. Wait.
farewell. You just snapped the tip?
Yeah, I broke the tip. I was going to test the flex.
Interesting that it snapped instead
Yeah.
of bending. That means its hardness is high.
But it was just on the tip. Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
actually a full grapple. Anyway.
Like, hang on. That Temu sword has a harder, stronger tip then, because snapping means it's a harder hardness, than this one here. This one we reviewed recently, still a good sword, but tip issues.
Yeah.
It wasn't focusing.
And even though I just broke the edge, do remember, we still have a fantastic
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
temper on it. Anyway,
Check
bye-bye.
out the review.
Bye for now.
Fair enough. Interesting. Very. Very, very interesting. Those little details. even in modern weaponry, there are some things we can still just experience. That's freaking awesome. I'm actually quite surprised. I'm very, very surprised that this is a thing. And fascinated. Quite honestly. Very, very fascinated. Well, I quite hope you enjoyed this one. Because I didn't expect that somebody else has this interest. Especially in my Acolyte zone here. But hey, I get proven wrong sometimes. I'm still correct about it, but I just pretend that I am wrong. So, as it is, Acolytes, good night.